For the entirety of 2021 so far, I've experienced burnout, extreme fatigue, and periods of total shutdown of my ability to executively function at all. Then we got a puppy. Hi, I'm Artemis, an overwhelmed autistic being with ADHD, and this is Ruby. She's the cutest thing you will ever see, and she's also a cheeky little shit who's made me cry multiple times a day. Neither of these things is her fault. Her cuteness comes from selective breeding designed specifically to make her genes as adorable to us human beings as scientifically possible. And her cheeky little shitness comes from her being a literal baby who does not know any better. Isn't that right, darling? She came into my life not through my choice, but that of my mother. Yeah, Ruby is mum's dog, and given that I live with mum and have strong opinions on the welfare of animals, I basically ended up being given 50% of the caretaking responsibilities for her. And as I said, not through any choice of my own. To be honest, we could have hardly brought Ruby home at a less optimal time. Even before having this fun-sized canine in the house, I was already in a state of perpetual exhaustion. I'd taken time off work and ended projects sooner than anticipated in attempts to curb my fatigue and burnout. And then suddenly, she's here, and I have to take into account a bunch of things that weren't already on my plate, like lack of sleep, needing to be constantly vigilant, and adjusting to her sleep schedule. I lack sleep because anytime she's not in the same room as me, she screams. I have to be constantly vigilant because she wants to chew everything in sight, including things that are dangerous for her, and as much as we try to puppy-proof the house, she always manages to find something that she shouldn't be chewing to chew. And then her sleep schedule, she tends to go to sleep about 8 o'clock at night and then wake up like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And given that my natural sleep schedule is going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at 10 a.m., not very compatible. So I've shifted to sleeping from like 11:30 to 7:30 because mum can be up for those couple of early hours and give me those extra few hours sleep. But my god! So yeah, I went from being exhausted to basically dead, all while people still had things they expected of me. And sure, I could take time off work and wrap up campfire stories early, but even in wrapping campfire stories up early, there were still a lot of things I had to do. And taking time off work meant having to get a note from my doctor, which is something I would struggle with even in the best of times. Having a puppy and all of the above has meant that I've found myself unable to recover in any meaningful way. All of this has me thinking about parenting a lot, both of fur children like Ruby and human children as well. And I know there'll be some of you who are like, don't even try to compare the two, they're completely different things. To which I say, you're right. Like, with a human baby, you can take parental leave, but there's no such thing as paternity leave. And you can take your human baby shopping, put them in a pram, push them around, but I can't take her shopping unless I want to tie her out the front. Any way that raising a puppy is easier than raising a human child probably comes from either the fact that we have lower standards for what you need to do to raise a dog than a human, or because dogs tend to mature a bit quicker and hopefully grow out of the screaming through the night and peeing everywhere a little faster, hopefully. Please, Ruby? Please, will you do that for me soon, please? Regardless of the kind of baby she is, she's still a baby, and the most responsibility of this kind that I've ever had thrust upon me. Now, I've been saying I need a puppy a lot for quite some time now, but it's not really something I ever meant. It's just one of those phrases that I say when I need something to say. As a teenager, I used to say, "Happy birthday," or "Le pigeon coucou." As an adult, I mostly say, "I need a puppy," "I'm a potato," or "Sandwiches, sandwiches, 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 sandwiches." I don't necessarily mean any of those things. I don't know if it's a tic, or an echolalia, or a vocal stim, or what. Either way, you shouldn't read too much into it. But some people have. To the point that when I express my exhaustion and frustration at the situation, they either take it as a joke or turn it around into a "be careful what you wish for" thing. But I never wished for this. That last part is kind of a lie. Like, I had wished for this, but not for a long time into the future. If we were to sit down and have a conversation about pets, I probably would have said something to you like, "I want a dog so badly, but I can barely take care of myself," or "I just wouldn't be able to give a pet the attention they deserve, and it would be irresponsible for me to get one," and so on. I'm bad at a lot of things, but staying away from big life-changing decisions due to thinking through all the possible ways it could go wrong, kind of my speciality. Yeah, so I did want a dog, but only in concept, not in practice. But look, I have a dog. A literal, real dog that I am responsible for looking after. Fuck. But beyond just making me a bit stressy or even upset, this whole situation has made me think about the fact that I never really thought that I would become a pet parent, or heck, even a human parent. Like, why is it that I so readily accepted that this one thing that so many others can do and find joy and fulfillment in was something that I would never have for myself? Isn't that a bit fucked up? Just FYI, she's down to sleep now, but I don't expect that's gonna last long, so if we have any lighting changes, that'll be why. I've been working on 2019's Stellar Young Award-winning play Breeders since about June 2019. The play explores a number of things, but one of its key themes is the intersection between parenting and disability. This is explored through the eyes of the main character Anna, who is an autistic teen girl, and worries about whether her parents wish she and her younger sister had never been born, or at least had been born differently. At times she feels mistreated by her parents, and worries through the history of disability neonaticide and prenatal screening for disability. I'm not going to talk through those issues specifically, whilst important, because that's not what this video is about. But if you would like to engage with them further, feel free to come along to Breeders, which is playing at La Mama Theatre in Carlton, the 16th to the 21st of March. Link for the tickets is in the description. Shameless plugs aside, this video will be focusing on the experience of parenting when you have a disability. Though less of a focal point, this issue is still discussed in Breeders. In one scene of the play, character Anna questions her mother about whether she would have had her children if she had known that there was a chance that they would be autistic. The conversation turns back to Anna when her mother Jackie asks if she intends to have children. Anna responds by saying that she would not be a good mother, and that if she had a non-speaking, high-needs autistic child, she would not trust anyone with them. There's also discussion about whether her high support needs sister should be fixed, and what would happen if she got pregnant, with Jackie responding, "That would never happen, Anna. It just wouldn't." Now, there's a discussion to be had here about assumptions that people make about disabled people and sexuality, but my A-row ace ass is probably not the right person to be leading that conversation. Instead, I want to focus on some ideas that Anna and I share about maybe being a bad parent and being unable to find support that is not shit. Let's start with that first one. I'd be a bad parent. It's the idea echoed in attitudes like, how could I look after someone else when I can barely look after myself, and I wouldn't be able to give them the attention they need. It's a conclusion I come to after assessing both what I think a good parent should be able to do and what I am capable of. And honestly, right now, I'm capable of very little. But even at my best, I doubt I'd meet my own standards for a good parent. I'm disorganized, emotionally reactive, and easily overwhelmed. I also am very ambitious, which means that I am often too busy to provide what I would consider an adequate level of care. And if I were to give up on said ambitions to be able to provide that care, it's kind of likely that I would end up harboring resentment towards the tiny little creature that I'm in charge of taking care of. Like this little innocent floof who keeps biting me. I do resent you. I do. I resent your face. But I love you. I love you, but I resent you. It's not your fault. It's mine. None of these things make me a bad person, but these are traits that I would say in combination are incompatible with good parenting. But would I say the same thing if I had adequate support? Here's where I get overly cynical for a moment, but the world has done very little to show me that adequate support is even possible. I'm not even talking about good support, just adequate support. It sounds fake, and I've good reason to believe that. I've met psychiatrists who are openly eugenicists. I've had a GP put my health in harm's way for ideological reasons. Just this week, my NDIS support coordinator quit without finding herself a replacement first. I'm not mad about that. No, not at all, not at all, not at all. Ha ha ha! I did a quick search for NDIS parenting support, and I had to go through 2.5 pages of results before I found the first one, which was aimed at supporting disabled parents. Every single other result before that was aimed at non-disabled parents of disabled children. It seems that the assumptions I made about myself and never being able to be a parent extend further than just myself. Society as a whole seems to look at disabled people and assume that parenting is A, something that we couldn't do, and B, something that we would never even want to do. And that's just support for me. What if, as Anna in Breeders mentioned, I had a high support needs child? There is so much abuse out there disguised as help that I don't know if I would ever feel comfortable taking my eyes off my child. Ever. In 2019, I was part of another play devised by Spectrum theatre company Atistic called Helping Hands, and it was about specifically this question of when help is helpful and when it isn't. We explored a number of real-world abusive systems of help that survive to this day, from the Judge Rotenberg Center, famous for its use of adversives including electric shocks, through to modern-day ABA, which was built off the same principles of using rewards and punishments to shape behavior. Many who practice ABA today claim that abusive practices are a thing of the past, but it's hard to take that at face value having seen what I've seen, and knowing that it's a therapy that focuses on changing behavior rather than improving quality of life. In Helping Hands, we came to a conclusion. Help is a negotiation, which is to say that any real help that is actually helpful comes from the person needing help discussing their needs with the person providing their help, who discusses what they're capable of providing and their boundaries. There are a number of people I can trust to help me in this manner, but they are mostly neurodivergent and or disabled themselves, which means they will also have limits to what they are able to do. In the world of healthcare and professional disability support, it is not uncommon for true negotiation to be set aside in favour of compromise that has more to do with the healthcare provider's biases, beliefs and ideologies than their actual capacity to help. For example, the one doctor who prescribed me a healthy dose of go to church as a cure for my anxiety. Yeah, I had to compromise my deep desire to deck that bastard because I wanted to leave with the medical certificate that I'd came for and not with violent crime added to the list of things that people think are wrong with me. Stay tuned for the video where I rank all of my past shitty healthcare professions. That's a joke. But I'd gladly do it. I could rant about this shit for weeks. Ugh, people suck. In a world where it's impossible to know how those who are supposed to give support will act, it's hard to trust that anyone could or would actually be helpful. And that's just disability. This shit compounds if you need support that is queer-friendly or not actively racist. That is to say, that if parenting was a thing that I decided I want to do, I'm highly skeptical that I would get any support. And that's quite messed up, isn't it? The fact that disability support is such a lucrative industry, and yet I'm still sitting here thinking that this one thing that society told me was an inevitable part of being an adult is impossible for me, that's quite telling. It shows me that the exchange of money over disability support has nothing to do with an actual desire to help, but rather a desire to give the appearance of helping. And I'm sure there are exceptions to this rule, I'm sure there are people in that profession who really do care, but I'm talking about the profession as a whole, who focuses more on getting money out of disabled people than actually helping. I have never wanted to parent a human child, but lately I've been wondering how much of that comes from my existence as a disabled person and how much of that comes from my actual wants and desires. Like, do I not want to be a parent because it's just not for me, or is it because of all the things I've talked about in this video? Maybe that's a foolish question to ask. A large part of the autism community, and even the greater disability community, favours identity-first language, like autistic person, over person-first language, like a person with autism. One commonly stated reason for this is that one's neurodivergence or disability cannot be separable from the self, but rather affects every single little piece of one's life. As a person with multiple intersecting identities, I relate to this quite deeply. I know, for instance, that I can be quite touch-adverse, but is that touch aversion because I'm autistic? Or is it because I'm ace? Or is it because I'm trans? Who's to say? These are all intrinsic parts of my identity that overlap and intersect in interesting ways. Trying to separate them out from each other is a pointless and impossible task, and likely so is the attempt to separate any part of my identity from my lack of interest in parenting. If it all comes from my standards of being a good parent being incompatible with what I'm currently capable of doing without support, and my inability to trust that I will find support if I need it, then that's still valid and still a part of me. And maybe one day I'll realise that I suddenly have faith in the support systems the world has to offer, and then I'll want a puppy, and that's great! But until that day, I don't foresee parenting a child of any species to be something that's for me. And that's not a problem with me. That's a problem with society and how we've constructed systems of help for disabled people. Alright, say goodbye, Ribbles. Say goodbye. Bye, everyone. Say goodbye. Bye. Bye. What you looking at? That's my Switch. You can't eat that. That's expensive. That's my phone. That's also expensive. It's a bit less expensive because it's older now. Oh! Okay, I get the picture. Bye!